Golden sunlight hit the meadow, turning the morning dew into a sea of diamonds that clung to every blade of grass. Beneath the ancient oak tree, Annie the ant emerged from her tiny anthill, blinking against the brightness. She spotted it immediately, a single grain of wheat, shimmering and golden. To a human, it was a speck, but to Annie, it was a monolith 3 times her size. High above, a butterfly circled in lazy loops, looking down with colorful wings. "Look at that tiny thing struggling," the butterfly mocked, her voice drifting on the breeze. Annie didn't look up. She ignored the taunts and focused only on the golden prize before her. Annie clamped her powerful mandibles onto the rough husk of the grain and pulled with every ounce of her strength. The world became a series of obstacles. She slipped on a slick, waxy leaf, her legs flailing for a moment before she regained her grip. She tumbled over a jagged pebble that felt like a mountain, and for a terrifying second, the grain rolled back toward the grass. But Annie did not hesitate. She stood up, brushed the dust from her thorax, and pulled again. Step by agonizing step, she crossed the vast distance. Finally, she reached the safety of the ant hill and dropped the grain inside. The next morning, she returned. She found another grain. She dragged it home, repeating the cycle with silent, steady resolve. Max the grasshopper watched the scene from a high flower stalk.
He spent his hours jumping through the air and singing songs to the sun. He pointed a thin leg at Annie and laughed loudly. "Why do you bother with just one grain, little ant?" he shouted down, his voice full of pity. "Look at you, wasting your life for a crumb. Success requires massive loads."
"You should be finding a whole ear of corn or nothing at all." Annie paused, her legs braced against the soil. She pulled the grain toward the dark tunnel entrance. "I only need to carry one today," she replied calmly. Max just shook his head and hopped away, searching for a bigger thrill. Summer arrived with a vengeance, bringing a heat that seared the soil until it cracked like broken glass. While others hid from the sun, Annie pulled her grain. Then came autumn, bringing gale-force winds that threatened to carry her away. She braced her legs, dug into the earth, and pulled her grain. As winter approached, the sky turned a bruised purple. Rain turned the dusty paths into thick, freezing sludge. Other insects huddled in their burrows, shivering and hungry, watching the world turn cold. Annie crawled through the mud, her body weary but her spirit unbroken, delivering her daily grain. Weeks turned into months. Deep beneath the frost, her storage chamber grew. 1 grain became 10, 10 became 100, and 100 became a mountain. When the first snow fell, the meadow turned into a frozen wasteland. Silent and deadly, Max wandered the barren field, his vibrant green color faded, his ribs showing through his thin shell. Shivering, he found Annie's anthill and tapped weakly on the entrance. Annie opened the door. Max stared, breathless, at the vast piles of wheat filling every corner of the warm room. "How?" he whispered. "You never carried more than one." Annie stood by the entrance, looking at the mountain she had built. "I carried 1 grain every single day," she said softly. Max hung his head in the shadows. Annie gestured to the winter stockpile, welcoming him in. Each tiny grain had built a mountain. Consistent action had conquered the cold. 1 step, repeated, had become a lifetime of security.